Could have your attention here in the media center. We are joined by reigning Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series champion Martin Truex Jr., driver of the number 78 Bass Pro Shops 5-hour Energy Toyota for Furniture Row Racing. Martin, you were the king of the mile and a half last year, coming to our first mile and a half of the season. How comfortable are you in the car right now heading into this weekend's race here in Atlanta?
Looking forward to it. Had a pretty decent first practice there, and it's fun to get out on a racetrack like this and knock the rust off. It's always a bit of a surprise to come here a year later, and just get reminded of how crazy this place is and how slick it is and how fast it is. So definitely a cool place to come knock the rust off, and felt like we had a good practice. So excited about that. But as far as mile and a halfs go, I think this one is very unique. It's very different than most of the rest of them, and we're still looking to figure this place out, but I feel like we're getting closer, and hopefully we'll have a good weekend here.
Okay, we'll open the floor up for questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We will get a wireless microphone to you. We'll go to Jeff, then Lee, and then Jacob.
Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com. So with this new inspection system, are we going to see a big line of cars and people like, oh, I'm not going to be able to go out and qualify? Or is everybody just going to get through nicely and no problems?
That's a great question. I think we'll find out here in about 2 hours, to be honest, 3 hours. I know that our guys are planning. We stopped practice early just to try to get a jump start and have a good plan going into this system today, just to see what happens. We're trying to be ahead of the curve, I guess you could say. So it has potential to be, very difficult. It just depends on how many guys have to go around and what kind of line that creates.
We'll go to Lee, then to Jacob, then to Rick, then to Mark.
Lee Spencer, Motorsport.com. Has your life changed dramatically since winning the championship back in November? Is there anything that has happened to you that maybe was a little bit out of the ordinary or something you hadn't experienced before?
I can honestly say that not really. When I go places, it's a little different. I've gotten to do, obviously, I got to do a lot of different stuff this off season because we won the championship, and that was all fun and a lot of new stuff to me. But I can honestly say I'm no different. I mean, I don't feel any different. I don't do anything different during the week. I don't hang out with different people. It's just it's an accomplishment that I've worked my whole life for, and I could not be more proud to be a champion of the Cup Series. But honestly, I'm still the same person, so I don't really know how to answer that one. But I would say no. I would say that we're approaching this season very similarly to how we did last year. Trying to be open-minded, not get caught by surprise, try to be as well prepared as we can. A lot of things have changed in the off-season. The inspection process is one of them. But it's a new year, and everybody's worked all winter to try to come back and go after their first championship, or try to knock us off the top of the hill. So you got to be open-minded. You got to be driven. You got to work hard. You can't take any of it for granted because it'll slip out from under you. So I think everybody's done a good job of just being prepared, and so far things have gone fairly smoothly. So we'll just have to see how it all plays out and continue to work like we always do.
Go to Jacob, then to Rick, Mark, and Matt.
Jacob Zeilman, Race Chaser Online Performance Motorsports Network. Martin, with Atlanta, Chase was talking about a little bit ago, with this being such a different kind of mile and a half with the tire wear and how everything plays out here, for you being the king of mile and a halves, is this where the title defense starts, or do you really not necessarily feel that until you get to Vegas, which, oddly enough, you won last year?
Well, I think that this is a good first chance for us to see kind of where we stack up against the competition, how we feel, as compared to years past. So I don't know. This is a great racetrack. It's a lot of fun to race here. I always look forward to it, and it's a good place to kick off the season as far as getting off the super speedway or the restrictor plate race. So we'll just see how it goes. But I feel good so far, and got a lot of things to accomplish this weekend.
Rick Miller, Martin, I know it's kind of ancient history, but what do you remember about your IROC wins from here? And looking back on them, is that more impressive, less impressive? You were able to do it at such a young age here?
I guess what sticks out to me most there is just beating all the Cup guys. You know, I was still an Xfinity regular back then doing that, and you know, we always ran really well in the IROC cars. Won both races here. Should have won a bunch more at other racetracks, but to win them both here was really cool. To race with the Cup guys and beat them, it was really a feather in my cap at the time. And you know, looking back and thinking about it, I just remember how special it felt, and you know, how great of an accomplishment I felt like it was at the time to race and beat guys like Mark Martin and Tony Stewart and, you know, Newman and Kenseth. And there was just, I mean, the field was stacked, and it was a huge deal for me back then to be able to do that.
Mark?
Mark Garrow, PRN. Amen. Last year, after winning at Las Vegas and the way that you won at Las Vegas, did you have an inkling then or any idea that, man, we are going to wax these guys on the 1.5-mile tracks all year?
Not really. I mean, I think if you look back at that race, we, you know, we did run really well, but at the end of the race, we were probably second best car. You know, I think the 2-car had us beat. They beat us off, you know, out of the pits or whatever, I think, and they had us beat at the end. So without their failure, we probably run second there. But you know, I don't know. I think we just take it 1 week at a time. There was, you know, I think at the beginning of the season last year, we had a brand new 2018 Camry we were trying to figure out, and felt like we were behind the curve a little bit on that. You know, so I think come out of the box as strong as we did and win Vegas, it definitely made us feel good, and you know, we knew we still had some development to do, some things to work on to get better. So we were optimistic, but you just never know how it's going to work out.
How did you look back, as you look back over your season, the performances you had on the mile-and-a-half racetracks? How did you look at that, the laps led and the dominance there?
Just hope to try to do it again. I mean, honestly, that's a good. There's a lot of good numbers there to shoot for. It's certainly going to be hard to duplicate. You know, we'll just have to see. But I feel like mile-and-a-halves are you know, places where I feel comfortable, places where I think we've learned a lot as a group over the years on how to approach them, how to be good on them, and what it takes. So we'll see if we can put it all together again this year.
Go to your left here to Matt.
Matt Weaver, AutoWeek.com. I know you're a new addition to the Drivers' Council this year, but how influential do you think the council was when it came to the decision not to resurface this place? And moving forward, what sort of discussions do you think the council will have when it comes to whether or not to do it this year, or how to go about doing it, what aggregates, stuff like that?
I would say there's not a driver in the garage that wants to pave this track or wants this track to get repaved. Unfortunately, we're going to probably find out on Sunday. I think the weather and Mother Nature and you know, the circumstances that we'll have to deal with this weekend are going to be what makes that decision for us. But you know, as far as racing goes and being a driver, this place is so fun. It's so challenging. I don't think there's anyone that doesn't love it because of all those reasons. So it's a lot of fun, and you know, we'll see. I don't know that anybody's going to stop from repaving it eventually. We'll just have to see how it works out.
Jerry?
Jerry Jordan, kicking the tires.net and PRN. I'm not sure if it's Texas or Kansas or Vegas that's the closest to your home shop over in Denver, but
Kansas.
Okay, of course it is. But
Kansas.
But what about next week going to Vegas? Is it going to be that you're on the West Coast? Is that going to be a little bit of fun to be out there so that maybe you can bring some people to the track?
I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea who they plan on bringing to the track or whatever. I show up with my stuff and ready to go. I mean, focused on that.
Any additional questions for Martin?
Follow up. Like the crew, anybody from the shop, do they get the opportunity to go to the races? Because when they're out here, it doesn't seem like all the people can make it. That's why I was kind of.
Yeah, I mean, we have rosters now, so there's only a certain amount of guys you can bring anyway. As far as to work on the car and work in the garage and things like that. But I'm sure Barney will be there and bring some people for the race or whatever. I would say that there won't be more than normal. I think there'll be a usual number of people.
Go to the back, Christian.
Christian Coley, frontstretch.com and the Motorsports News Source. I asked Brad and I also asked Chase about speeding penalties last year. Can you go over us about how you felt like speeding penalties could affect Sunday's race, and if you feel like they will affect Sunday's race?
I think speeding penalties can affect every race. I mean, it's something that everybody really works hard on to not get those penalties, but also you've got to be fast on pit road. You've got to push the limits because there's time to be gained and lost, and you know, ultimately it's easier to pass on pit road than anywhere on the racetrack. So I assume that it won't be any different than normal. I don't think anything's changed there. I think pit stops are still going to be the biggest topic of conversation about what happens on pit road with the new system and just the way everybody. I mean, there was some awful slow pit stops last week, and our team was one of them. So I think that's going to be the bigger story, more so than speeding penalties.
Next to Nate.
Nate Ryan, NBC Sports. Martin, there's been some talk among your peers about disapproval of NASCAR distributing some of this EFI data, making it more readily available to teams. Just wondering your perspective on that. Do you think that changes the game at all, especially as somebody who was so far ahead, like on the mile-and-a-half tracks a lot of places last year?
Well, I definitely don't like to see it. You know, I don't think it's really a good idea to be letting all the other teams see drivers' data from different teams. I certainly don't want people looking at what I'm doing. I've worked for 13 years to work on my style, figure out different racetracks, and feel like the way I drive the car and the data that, you know, is produced by that is kind of, it's mine. It's not for everybody to see. That's my style. It's the way I drive. It's stuff I've worked on for years and years and years. And the fact that, you know, rookies will be able to see that stuff, I don't think is fair, because it didn't come like that for me. I had to figure out how to drive each track and why they were different and how to adapt my style to each racetrack. So I feel like it's intellectual property. I know a lot of the guys agree with that. We'll just have to see what comes out of this and what it looks like. I mean, at this point in time, you know, the data is pretty much useless to look at from the standpoint that it's just not that accurate. So I'm hoping it stays that way. And, you know, we've talked to NASCAR and we've tried to, you know, do as much as we can to help them understand this, because I don't think we want everybody in the garage driving exactly the same way. I mean, it's already, the cars are so close together. There's a lot of style involved in making your car go around the track better than everybody else's, and you certainly don't want to share that. You know, I can't answer that, to be honest. I'm not sure why. It's not very accurate right now. But again, I hope it stays that way. I don't know what that all entails. On whose end is it that it's not really filtered down yet? It's really hard to say at this point. I don't know a whole lot about it other than I hate that it's going this direction.
Well, Martin, good luck this
Thank you.
weekend and good luck the rest of the year.